Local graduate from St. Cloud State. I also have a little bit of a background in city planning, so this is a great experience, and I like being up here. So thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Jim Graves, I'm running for Congress against Michelle Bachmann. I would have voted for the transportation bill, by the way, like everybody else did in the state. I want to say that transportation is near and dear to me. I'm a business guy. I've actually lived on transportation my entire life. I'm in the hospitality business. I know what it means and what it takes to have a good transportation system. It keeps our businesses going. And more importantly, what we need is a voice and we need a vision that represents this area. We need more than 8 cents on a dollar. We need to get things done here. And rather than make specific promises, I'll let you know I understand business and I understand what it takes to get this thing going. Now, as far as business goes, we need to get things to and from. This is a nonpartisan issue. This is blue, red, independence, doesn't make any difference. We need to make this economy work. And to make it work, you need to have quality of life, and you need to have transportation to get goods and services to and from. And this is a very vibrant area of the state. This area of the state should get a lot of attention, and you need a strong voice, and you need someone with a vision. So that's what I'm doing here, and I appreciate all of your interest.
Hi, I'm Rick Bohannon. I'm running for the House District 13A, which includes St. Joe, Avon, down to Painesville in the southwest. And I'm very appreciative for you all coming out here. Transportation is something that I care a lot about. I'm in the Planning Commission in Cold Spring right now. We're actually going through a transportation plan update, a multi-year kind of process. And so transportation is something I've been thinking a lot about. And as one of our presenters said, you know, it matters for jobs, it matters for economy, but it also matters just for our everyday lives. It matters when you get stuck in a traffic jam trying to get into the convention center. It matters just how we get around in all facets of our lives. So I think transportation is kind of a central issue, and I'm glad to be able to talk with you all about it today. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Ann Nolan, and I'm running for state representative to represent District 14A. I'm Steve Gottwald's opponent. And my background is in economic development and workplace policy, and so transportation is very important to me because I see it as a way to tie the region together economically and create more economic activity and create more jobs for everyone. In particular, in Amy Klobuchar's video, you heard her mention that we need to get the ridership details straightened out on North Star. I am very committed to fixing the scheduling problem on North Star that makes a mismatch between our Metro bus fixed route system here in St. Cloud and getting to North Star and North Star Link. If we had just one more run on North Star, half an hour later, we could fix that problem. And I'm hopeful that we can get that done.
Good afternoon. Tim O'Driscoll, current state representative from the central Minnesota area. I will be representing the new area of 13B if re-elected in November, which includes the cities of Sartell, Sauk Rapids, Holdingford, and St. Stephen, and places in and around those areas as well. In the way of background, Sartell City Council member, past mayor of the city of Sartell, and currently a member of the legislature, and have a very active record in supporting transportation initiatives at all levels of my involvement in government.
Good afternoon. My name is John Peterson. Currently, I serve as your state senator here from St. Cloud. I'm the candidate for Senate District 14. The new Senate District 14 includes St. Cloud, Wake Park, St. Augusta, and Minden and Haven townships. Moving to the east, just in the last few minutes, I dropped a few documents on your table. The first one is my record in terms of authoring transportation bills. You can take a look at that. There's 8 bills that authored this last session. There's a letter to an editor there that was written. You can review related specifically to Greater Minnesota funding, transit funding, and then finally a brochure that talks a little bit about myself and background that you can review at your leisure. I'm grateful for the chance to be here and talk to you about this very, very important issue for central Minnesota.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the invitation to be here today. I'm Michelle Fischbach. I am the current state senator from Senate District 14 and running for state senate in District 13 because of the redistricting. I live in Painesville, which is the home of the brand new Painesville bypass, if you haven't gotten a chance to drive out there and see it. So very excited about that transportation project. And I serve as the president of the Senate currently and chair of the Higher Ed Committee. And in addition, do sit on the Finance Committee where all of the finance bills come through. But I am just happy to be here to discuss this important issue and the projects that we will go forward with. Thank you.
Good afternoon, State Representative Steve Gottwald. I represent District 15A, which will become the new District 14A, and hopefully I'll be winning re-election to that to represent those people. I have a long background in local transportation issues, as many of you know. I see a lot of friends in the room. And I'll just comment briefly before I go on with my background. I think regardless of what happens this election season, you have a long tradition of local people supporting local projects here. The CMTA, APO, St. Cloud Regional Airport were all very effective, and I think they've always had a very open delegation representing the Matter State Legislature, and certainly if I'm re-elected, I expect to continue doing that. I served 9 years on the St. Cloud City Council, dealing with transportation issues among many other things. I served on the Area Planning Organization Board, the CMTA, the St. Cloud Regional Airport Board. I currently, in the House of Representatives, chair the House Health and Human Services Reform Committee, also serve on the Finance Committee for Health and Human Services, and then I serve on Taxes and Ways and Means. And Ways and Means, of course, is also important when it comes to the funding issue. So this is very important. Terry mentioned earlier that it's always a long list of needs and not as much money to deal with, so it's all about priorities and creative solutions. And I look forward to discussing those with you.
Good afternoon, my name is Brian Johnson. I am a candidate for running in District 15B, covering communities such as Foley, Clearwater, and Rice. I understand the importance of having a strong infrastructure. We need to make sure we have not only strong roads and strong bridges, but also I tremendously support the extension of the North Star Rail, unlike my opponent who does not support the extension of North Star Rail. I want to thank you so much for the opportunity for me to speak with you today, and I look forward to your questions.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Howe, and I'm the running for the House seat in 13A, which was, Rockville, Cold Spring, Paynesville, Collegeville, Avon, St. Joe. I've got a deep interest in transportation because I'm actually a transportation officer of the Minnesota National Guard, and I know all too well what it means to be able to move things and what it takes to get things in a timely manner to their destination. I also have a deep interest in Highway 23 as it runs right by my house, and I really believe that we need to continue to expand that 4 lanes clear from Wilmer to St. Cloud, and actually I'd like to see it 4-lane all the way to Duluth. But thanks, I'm looking forward to this and appreciate being here.
Hi, I'm Jerry McCarter. I am a candidate for Senate District 14. I'm a retired CPA, spent the last 5 years of my career focused on the distribution industry. And infrastructure and trucking issues were paramount in operating those businesses. I sit here and I get a little frustrated. Everybody is so committed to transportation and infrastructure. And yet, as we heard today, we continue to fall behind. Not just a little bit behind, a lot behind. We got to stop the rhetoric, and we've got to face the fact that we need to come up with some significant sources of revenue to pay for these projects that need to get done, or we are going to pay so dearly economically down the road if we don't make the investments. And the same is true in education. We hear the same stories when we look at education. We're not investing at the levels we need to be doing. We've got to stop kidding ourselves. We've got to stop the pontification about no new taxes. Let's get real. We need to face the fact that we need to invest hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, in just the next couple of years to try to catch up within the next 20 years. It's my commitment to you that I'm going to bite the bullet and I'm going to take the hit for willing to be increased taxes. And I'll tell you something, I've done work with 14 different states on private-public partnerships. And I know who comes out ahead on those deals. And building toll roads and some of this other creative financing techniques are not the solutions. Public roads are public roads, and the public should pay for them. And I'm willing, like I said, to bite the bullet, find ways to fairly increase taxes to pay for the investments we damn well need to make.
Thank you. My name is King Banyan. I'm currently the representative in House District 15B. I am running for election to the new House District 14B, which includes north side, east side of St. Cloud, downtown through the university, Haven and Minden Townships. I teach economics over at St. Cloud State University. Have done so for quite some time, since 1984. One of the things that we've studied in another role I serve is as co-author of the St. Cloud Area Quarterly Business Report is to look at the impact of transportation. And one thing we definitely have looked at in detail has been the impact of the closing of the airport, the closing of commercial air service to the airport, and the need to bring that back. That is an issue that I've been thinking about, writing about, working on in the legislature, and it's something we need to continue. There are other issues as well, but in the interest of time, I'll pass the mic. Thank you.
Well, as they say, last but certainly not least, hopefully. My name is Shannon Schrader. I'm running for state representative in District 13B. Tim kind of gave you an overview of what all that includes. I did my undergrad at the College of St. Benedict. Somebody talked about the Johnny-Tommy game. You know, obviously the Johnnies lost, which was unfortunate, but it kept our public officials or public safety officials busy. So, a laugh finally. I also did my master's degree at St. Cloud State University, so I'm from the area, and I get to drive on these roads all the time. I see Jody here from Stearns County and the West Metro Corridor, a project that you guys did the last couple of years. I mean, that's been great to alleviate some traffic. So we've had some good local projects that have addressed some of our needs. My dad and my sister both work in the business of dispatching trucks and trucking and moving goods and services. And what I've heard from a lot of people in the trucking industry is that Minnesota is one of the most inefficient transportation systems in the country. And I don't have a lot of experience with transportation, and so I can only take their word for it that it's very inefficient. Obviously, job creation and economic development are some of the top concerns and priorities of Minnesotans today. And the only way that we can create jobs and enhance our economic development is if we have a proper transportation system to get those things done. So I feel that we do need to invest in our transportation system. That's going to help the public sector, it's going to help the private sector. We're going to create jobs, and that's going to help our economy. And so, you know, the governor, I believe on one of those slides that Margaret showed, talked about, he had proposed a $10 billion bonding bill, and that's nowhere near what was passed. Rates are cheap right now. We should be bonding, we should be investing, and that would be creating jobs and enhancing our economy.
We're going to, the last will be first. We'll just reverse it. So we'll bring the mic back this way when we start with the question. I have three questions that I'm going to ask. First of all, that the three hosts come up with, and if you could keep your response again to under a minute, and if you just want to say I agree with what has been said, that's fine too, so we can keep this moving along. But the first, and then we'll take questions from the audience that you've already submitted. The first question, given the growing gap between the needs of our aging transportation system and the projected amount of revenue from current funding levels, are there any funding or financing options that you are particularly attracted to, and any that you oppose?
That's what I get for not having a name tag. I get to be at the end, and so first. I wanted to look at the matrix of ideas that you had come up with for some funding. One of them that I'm particularly attracted to, I think I just mentioned the bonding. I mean, I think we should have bonded for more money to create some projects and to invest. One of them that I'm not particularly in favor of is things that are going to increase property taxes. In the past 16 years, we've grown to a reliance on our property taxes more so than our income taxes, and I feel that's a regressive system and that we need to get away from that. So to keep answers short, I'll move on.
Thank you. It's a good question. It's a difficult question. to answer. Certainly some of the funding sources that are out there involve, well, since most of the funding for this does not come out of general fund revenue, but in fact comes out of the highway tax fund. If you're going to look at additional funding sources using the existing structure, you're more likely to look at an increase in the gas tax. It's been a while since we've had that, and I suspect that's a discussion that has to be out there going forward. However, I actually do favor the idea of looking at the private sector to see what possibilities there are for partnerships. I have tried to look at the possibility that we could find a pilot project somewhere that might work. There's a lot of resistance to that. I can tell you one thing. You would never want to do that with a road that you've already paid for once. But if it meant creating something that was brand new, a de novo project like a bridge, a new bridge to go over a river somewhere, that might be something that you might want to consider being something that where a private-public partnership might be useful, and I'd like us to explore that.
I don't want to close the door on any options, but I will say that I find the public-private partnership, the toll roll approach, as one that's going to cost the taxpayers and citizens a lot more in the long run. I think we need to broaden our base. We certainly need to look at an increase in the gas tax, as well as looking at measuring it based on miles rather than gallons. And that's a difficult transition. I know France has gone to it now, and I think as the technology develops, that's an area where we could go. But I do think there needs to be more general fund support to cover the bonding costs, because I think we need to make enormous investments planned out over a 10 or 15-year period to get us caught up.
Well, that gap, I think we definitely need to make some investments, and to me, investments include the bonding. But keeping in mind we don't want to make a big hole in and create a deficit, but I'd also be interested in the gaming option and raising the gas tax. That all sounds reasonable to me.
You know, I'm willing to keep an open mind, but looking at a few specific things. I'm also for increasing the gas tax, not looking to increase property tax. I think people are struggling enough with those kind of tax measures. But really keeping an open mind and see what comes down the line, and that's what I'm going to do.
Well, it seems like everybody's willing to keep an open mind. That's the easiest answer. And I don't sit on a transportation committee, but when we see proposals come forward, they come forward with a list of things that you want to spend money on and a funding solution. And I am open to working with you people and anybody else on any ideas about that. That's what it means to keep an open mind in terms of the real legislation. I tend to favor user-based fees. Now you can translate that any way you want, but I think people who are using the transportation should help pay for it. We've talked about excise taxes, gas taxes, whether you call them tolls or fast lanes, whatever the idea is. I think user-based fees are a good idea when it comes to our transportation system. Bonding has been mentioned. I agree. I think we got to be careful, though, how much we do of that. And this is a theme right across the board, whether you're in the federal government or the state government. We have to be careful how much we're putting in and how we do that. Finally, improving the funding formula, I think, is critical. We keep coming back to that over and over again. When you're only getting 8 cents or 80% of what you put in, 8 cents out of every 10, that's ridiculous. We have been a net contributor for a long time. That would be a simple way, very early on. Of course, we've got to battle the rest of the state to do that. But I think we do need some more fairness in how much money we get back for what we put in, as at least one place for us to get some more money for District 3.
And now we've heard from about 5, 6 people down there, and it's hard to come up with something new. But because they've talked a lot about a lot of the options. But I just wanted to say, you know, Representative Banyan talked about the private-public partnerships, and I think that is an important way to go. It's something that we can move away from all of the issues that who will support this tax increase, that tax increase. But this way we can be more creative and move outside of those issues. In addition, absolutely would support the bonding. Representative Gutwald, though, pointed out we need to be careful with it. So those are some of the ways, and I know that we did have a discussion about the min pass last year, but it didn't end up in the final bill. But it is something that we certainly can look at, and Representative Banyan also mentioned that it needs to be something new and not something that is already built. So that, and I think it was Doug who was talking about the Highway 10 connection. That would be the kind of thing that would make sense to use that public-private partnership on.
I'll kind of split my answer up into two different categories, kind of short-term answers and long-term answers. The best short-term answer is, folks, is our economy is improving. And I hope you recognize the candidates up here that are taking that the glass is half full approach and a positive approach rather than the glass is half empty approach and a negative approach. It makes all the difference in the world, folks, when your legislators are taking a positive approach, when our economy is beginning to improve and beginning to grow. That is indisputable. And there's definitely short-term fixes for transportation. First of all, I'd likely support a sales tax exemption for the materials that go into road construction. That would be an easy way to allow us to build more roads right away, next month, next year. Another thing, short-term, certainly bonding. You can see as my record there as the author of the local and road bond issue, as well as the local bridge bond issue and the Greater Minnesota Transit bond issue, so I'll continue to support that as a short-term solution. But we need to look at how we're doing road construction. You'll see another bill that the governor signed on my list there relating to concrete, diamond grinding, and saw slurry. These are the contractors that go out and level interstate highways with a huge saw. Because of this bill, that slurry was mislabeled as a hazardous waste about 4 years ago. And since then, taxpayers have paid 18% more to have those contractors grinding and fixing our roads. Folks, with the passage of this bill, we're going to be able to do 18% more grinding in the state of Minnesota. And all it did is requiring a couple legislatures working with the Department of Transportation and the PCA and showing them the mistake that was made 4 years ago when it got lumped in with hazardous waste. There's many things like that. You'll see another bill there relating to architecture and engineering licensing. We can do things so that engineers and contractors are more competitive on bid day. We need to do those, and we need to do them right away next session, because with simple steps like that, we will be able to build more roads, have more work done, and move forward. Long term, you'll see on my record there, I'm an advocate for public-private partnerships. We took a stab at that last year, and I got to tell you, I'm very encouraged by the folks that are coming to the table on that. As you know, with majority legislature from one party and a governor from the other, you know something like that is not going to happen unless there's agreement and broad-based bipartisan support. And that's what you're going to get with a public-private partnership bill if we see that move forward. That's something the DOT is very interested in and quite frankly is studying right now with a working group as well.
One of the things that was asked in the question was what can be done for new sources of funds for road and bridge projects. Well, I want to thank Senator Peterson because he co-authored, or I should say in the Senate, carried the Senate version of the bill that I carried, that the MTA, the folks who are a sponsor of this event today, asked to have put into the bonding bill. For the first time in the state's history, or in a long time anyhow, we have money that was put into the local bridge projects and into money into the local road improvement project. And it was outlined earlier today, those monies could have been used for projects like the Highway 15 County Road 120 project. Although these projects were done before that money was available, we were able to introduce into the bonding bill and get some money starting to go into those types of things. Perhaps it'll be able to be used on the 33rd Street interchange, and perhaps it'll be able to be used on others in central Minnesota, or at least money available across the state. So I was very pleased to be able to do that. Secondly, been a strong supporter over the years at the local level and continue to be as a legislator for the local option sales tax. The central Minnesota cities have a partnership that allows for funds to be raised with the half-cent sales tax and can be invested in many different ways, including transportation projects. And Sartell worked very hard when I was on the city council and mayor to fulfill our obligations on the West Metro Corridor project. Everybody thinks West Metro Corridor was just the bridge crossing over by the MAC. It was one of many projects that was on there. And so if you've been through Sartell, you've seen that we've used multiple sources of funds, including local option sales tax, to bring about transportation and circulation of traffic. And I would also again like to thank Senator Peterson, because with his efforts and my efforts in the House, we authored and carried the bill for renewal and extension of that local option sales tax mechanism for central Minnesota. It was a part of the tax bill which the governor chose not to sign this year, but we did work very hard to bring that through to give ourselves a shot and keeping that financing source available.
It's always nice to have something that I agree with Steve Gottwald on, because those opportunities don't come up very often. I agree with him that we need to be improving the funding formula. Region 3 is increasingly urban, and it's been growing, and that growth is going to continue, and the funding formula needs to recognize that. I agree with what Shannon Schrader and Jerry McCarter said about their funding priorities, especially bonding. Capital investment's on sale right now. Interest rates are historically low. Bids are coming in lower, and now is the time when we can get the best value for our dollar and catch up on the projects that have been waiting for a long, long time. And finally, I think it's really important that we not let federal matches get away from us because we're looking short-term instead of long-term. I think we need to fix the scheduling problem on North Star to get the ridership up so that we don't lose the opportunity to have federal funding to bring it the rest of the way here to St. Cloud. And I think we should have bonded more for the Southwest Corridor Transit rather than funding yet another ballpark. And I think the legislature should take responsibility for the bonding bill priorities and not hand them off over to DEED. I think it's the legislator's responsibility to prioritize and to go through the political process and to identify where our needs really are. And I think we would have had a better result if the legislature had met that responsibility.
Great, thanks. So lots of good ideas that have come up so far. In terms of new funding sources, the two main sources that I would see in the short term would be in Minnesota we have a regressive tax system, so the wealthier you are, the less taxes you're paying, and I find that ridiculous and unjust. And so I would like to see that change to where the people who can afford it most are paying the most taxes. On a longer term range, I would like to see Minnesota follow the model of British Columbia, become the first state in the United States to have a carbon tax, which would be similar to a gas tax, but would be related to greenhouse gas emissions, which would not only make us a leader in dealing with climate change, which if any of you were in Minnesota this summer, you're aware, at least anecdotally, that that's a real issue. But it also would would provide a large pool of money. In British Columbia, the way they offset the additional cost to, say, small businesses that are transportation reliant is to couple a carbon tax with tax cuts to small businesses and to low and middle income families, so that those who are most affected by it, the effects could be offset by other tax reductions and effectively tax things that we don't want and don't tax things that we do want, like people having good jobs.
Thank you. I think we need a blended average approach. I think bonding is a very good investment right now. It should be used for our intrastate type new projects. It's investing in the future. It will not hurt our bond rating if we do it appropriately. I think from a federal perspective, interstate type projects should be funded from a federal perspective. It's a more progressive approach, and we need a voice in Washington to make sure that we get our fair share. Then obviously on the replacement reserve side, keeping our assets up, keeping our infrastructure up. We have to look at gas tax, we need to look at the user fees, and we also can be looking at local sales and excise taxes. So I think it's a blended average. We need a comprehensive, a macro approach to this, and we can do it, and we will do it.
Yeah, I think part of it starts with electing folks like Jim, because we've got nothing but waiting, hurry up and wait with the federal level. And but on more of a local level, we need to look at all the options seriously. You asked kind of some specifics. One, do we need subsidies within the income tax code for motors things. That's in relation to the gas tax. Two, we have to stop saying no to borrowing simply because of strict adherence to political ideology. We could have borrowed $25 million to get some $650 million in federal funding for light rail. These are missed opportunities. And if you listen closely up here in this presentation, so much of what we're talking about